Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm going to do a book review for you guys. It's a book called Mao, A Life, and it's by British author Philip Short. And at least by the time when the book was written, he was living in southern France with his Chinese wife, Ren Chuan. And Ren Chuan was a key factor in getting this book written because she was able to translate a lot of key Chinese documents about Mao Zedong into the book. And Philip Short notes that when Mao Zedong was in power, China developed developed their own ICBMs. They had ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. They became a permanent member on the UN Security Council. That did go on. But at the same time, at the end of the book, Philip Short notes that, yes, Deng Xiaoping was responsible for the Tiananmen Square massacre, but Deng Xiaoping's oppression was minor compared to Mao Zedong's oppression. Deng Xiaoping, even with the Tiananmen Square massacre, was extremely minor compared to the oppression that Mao Zedong inflicted on his people. Like, prime example, during the Cultural Revolution, the book notes that Mao Zedong banned the Politburo. He wasn't going to let the Politburo try to overthrow him or try to hold him accountable with what was going on in the Cultural Revolution. And it does talk about the horrible, ill-conceived plans of the Great Leap Forward, talking about how the sparrows were the enemy of China and how so many sparrows died from exhaustion. And also that the government basically lied and said how many food they produced in the first year of the Great Leap Forward. The government statistics said they produced 270 million tons, but recent documents show that that was a lie, that they actually only produced 170 million tons. This was one of the worst famines in China's history. And Philip Short does note that in the book. Now, he does talk about how tough of a fighter Mao was in fighting against the nationalists and the 6,000 mile long march where they really didn't retreat, but they fell back so they wouldn't be annihilated by the nationalists. And it talks about how they were commanded at one point by a German communist named Otto von Braun, but he wanted like a blitzkrieg type warfare, which proved ineffective against the nationalists, which is why Otto von Braun was eventually stripped of his command. And Mao wanted more of a guerrilla style campaign, and the guerrilla style campaign actually proved effective in that area. But it also talks about, like, during the Cultural Revolution, that Mao Zedong, like, the Red Guards, who were basically his followers, in the last few days, the last 3 to 4 days in August, about 320 people in those last 4 days were beaten to death. One of them was one of them was about a 5-month-old baby whose parents were anti-communist, but the baby was not old enough to talk, but the Red Guards killed the baby. And then they also killed an 83-year-old man as well during that time. Just a sick, sadistic situation. And yes, at the end of the book, Deng Xiaoping, who instituted a lot of capitalistic reform for China in the economic sector, he was responsible for the Tiananmen Square massacre. But even with the Tiananmen Square massacre, the reason a lot of Chinese who know about it or were there during the Tiananmen Square massacre don't complain is because Deng Xiaoping's oppression was mild and minor compared to the oppression that Mao Zedong inflicted. I mean, it's that sadistic of a situation. Also, in the 1940s, in Mao Zedong's most selective clique of the Communist Party, or his most trusted clique, that had about 30 members, 10 of the 30 were branded as nationalist spies, which was not true at all. If they worked for the nationalist government during the time, it's because there was a time during World War II where the nationalists and the communists suspended fighting and formed a temporary alliance to try to defeat the Imperial Japanese. This was just basically a way to consolidate power, and you'll see that in the book. And Philip Short does note that after Mao was done, that China had a permanent Security Council membership in the United Nations. They had intercontinental ballistic missiles, and basically, in some ways, actually, in a lot of ways, was a military superpower. But at the same time, he notes how horrible of an oppression Mao Zedong inflicted, how neglectful of a husband he was to a lot of his wives, and he was very ungrateful to his father. Even though his father continued to support him and pay for his studies, even though Mao wasn't looking likely to return home to help out the family. So, you know, that's another side of Mao Zedong as well. But anyway, I recommend that people read the book. They decide for themselves, and you'll see that Mao Zedong was not a saint. He wasn't an angel. He ordered the killings of a lot of people. At least 70 million. In one of the last videos, I said 7 million, but I honestly meant 70 million. 70 million people. Anyways, hope everybody's doing well. Take care. God bless them. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.